Buckle up, everyone, because today we are going deep on the story of us humans. You know how we became the social planet-shaping force that we are.
It really is amazing, isn't it?
It is wild when you start to think about all the unlikely events that just had to perfectly line up just for us to even exist.
Yeah, it's a story that's playing out over literally hundreds of millions of years, right? And chance played a big role.
It did.
We're talking about a lineage of like 100 billion individuals.
Wow.
Each one a stepping stone on the path to Homo sapiens.
It's humbling to think about.
It is humbling.
And to guide our exploration, we're using E.O. Wilson's book, The Social Conquest of Earth.
Great book.
And he makes this really intriguing comparison between human evolution and, the evolution of ants and termites, like those master collaborators of the animal kingdom.
Yeah, he was a world expert on ants.
Yeah.
And so his point is that while humans are obviously very different from insects,
Right.
There are some surprising parallels in how our social structures developed, right?
Right.
Especially when you consider the environmental pressures and biological limitations that kind of shaped us, right?
Yeah. Okay, let's unpack that a little bit. What were some of those key factors that sort of nudged us toward, becoming such social creatures?
Well, one crucial factor was our size. Compared to insects, we're giants.
We are.
Right. And that, combined with our limited mobility relative to, other mammals, actually played a significant role in shaping our social evolution.
So we weren't the fastest or the strongest. We couldn't just, outrun or overpower our predators.
Right.
We had to get smart.
Exactly. It's like, the old saying, necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
Our ancestors had to rely on their brains and their ability to cooperate to survive. They couldn't just go it alone.
Right. And so where do our primate ancestors fit into this? I mean, they were already pretty social.
Absolutely. And one of the key adaptations that set the stage for our social complexity was their life in the trees. This arboreal lifestyle, as it's called, led to the development of grasping hands with opposable thumbs.
Right.
Essential for navigating those branches. And as it turned out, for so much more.
Yeah. Can you imagine trying to, text a friend with paws?
Right.
Our hands were a game changer.
Absolutely. Those dexterous hands were a pre-adaptation for tool use.
Right.
Which would become increasingly important as our ancestors ventured out of the trees and onto the savanna.
And that brings us to another huge development, walking upright.
Yep.
But bipedalism didn't exactly make us speed demons, right?
No, but it did something far more important. It made us incredibly efficient long-distance runners capable of covering vast distances.
Wow.
With minimal energy expenditure.
So picture this. Our ancestors out on the African savanna, maybe not the fastest sprinters, but able to outlast their prey in like a marathon pursuit.
Exactly. And this endurance hunting strategy, as it's called, would require incredible stamina, strategic planning, and crucially, cooperation. It's no coincidence that bipedalism and complex social behavior evolved hand in hand.
Yeah, I mean, this new hunting style led to another major shift, a meat-heavy diet.
Yes.
I mean, more calories means more energy for our growing brains, right?
Precisely. Meat provided the fuel for our expanding cognitive abilities.
Right.
But it wasn't just about the calories, right?
Okay.
Hunting large prey required sophisticated strategies, communication, teamwork.
Right.
It was a powerful driver of social cohesion.
And don't forget about fire. I mean, not only did cooking make meat easier to digest and, more nutritious, but gathering around a shared hearth probably played a huge role in fostering, those early social bonds.
Absolutely.
Something that we still do today.
It is. It's a universal human experience.
It is.
This desire to gather around fire, share stories, connect with each other.
Yeah.
It speaks to those deep-seated social instincts that we've inherited from our ancestors.
Okay, so we've talked about, our primate heritage life in the trees, walking upright, hunting, meat, eating fire. All these factors kind of nudged us toward, greater social complexity. But if this path seems almost, inevitable in retrospect, why are we the only ones who made it?
Yeah.
Why didn't other mammals achieve this level of eusociality? That's the term for, highly cooperative societies with specialized roles.
Right. That's the million-dollar question, right?
Oh.
Dinosaurs had their chance, and so did many other mammal lineages.
Right.
But only we kind of navigated this evolutionary maze to become the ultra-social creatures we are.
Right.
It's a testament to the sheer improbability of it all.
We really are the evolutionary lottery winners.
We are.
But even with all these factors pushing us toward cooperation, I imagine there were still internal conflicts. right? We were not just selfless robots. I thought we had those selfish instincts too.
You're absolutely right. It wasn't just about external pressures from the environment. There was also this constant interplay between individual selection, those me-first impulses we all have,
Right.
and group selection, the forces that favor altruism and cooperation for the benefit of the group.
So it's like this constant tug of war between our selfish desires and, the need to work together for the good of the tribe.
Exactly. And this tension is at the heart of what makes us so unique, right?
Okay.
We're not just driven by blind instinct, right? We're capable of incredible acts of altruism and cooperation, but we're also capable of incredible acts of selfishness and cruelty.
Right.
It's a paradox that continues to shape our behavior to this day.
This brings us to another fascinating and often unsettling aspect of human sociality. Our tribal minds were hardwired to form in groups and, unfortunately, to view anyone outside those groups with, suspicion, even hostility.
Yeah.
Do you think these ancient tribal instincts still influence us today?
Without a doubt, think about the powerful emotions we feel around sports teams and rivalries.
Yeah.
It goes far deeper than just enjoying a game. It taps into this ancient instinct for group identity and sometimes for intergroup conflict.
It's almost primal, isn't it? Those intense feelings of, loyalty, rivalry, and even aggression that can erupt around something as seemingly trivial as a sporting event.
Right.
It makes you wonder how much of our behavior is truly rational and how much is driven by these, ancient evolutionary forces.
It's a fascinating question and one that we'll continue to explore as we delve deeper into the evolution of the human mind and the roots of our social behavior. Yeah, it really makes you appreciate just how deeply ingrained these social instincts are, and it's not just about tribal rivalries, right? This in-group bias can have a profound impact on how we see the world and make decisions, even in, seemingly rational domains like politics and economics.
So we're not as objective as we like to think we are. Our tribal allegiances can kind of, color our judgment even if we're not aware of it.
Precisely. It's a humbling reminder that, our brains are shaped by millions of years of evolution, and those ancient instincts can still exert a powerful influence on our behavior, even in the modern world.
This is making me think about our capacity for, both incredible good and incredible evil.
Yeah.
I mean, we can be incredibly altruistic, right? Sacrificing our own well-being, for the sake of others. But we can also be incredibly cruel and destructive, even to those, within our own group.
It's a fascinating and deeply troubling paradox, isn't it? But I think part of the answer lies in recognizing that our moral instincts aren't, fixed or absolute. They're shaped by this complex interplay of biology, culture, and individual experience.
So we're not just puppets of our genes blindly following some, predetermined moral code. We have the capacity for moral reasoning and moral growth.
Absolutely. We can learn from our mistakes, we can empathize with others, and we can even choose to act against our own self-interest for the sake of something greater.
Speaking of acting against our self-interest, what about altruism? Why would we ever put the needs of others ahead of our own, especially if those others aren't even related to us?
It's a question that has puzzled evolutionary biologists for decades. But one compelling explanation is that altruism, at least within a group, can actually be a selfish strategy in disguise.
A selfish strategy? How so?
Well, think about it from an evolutionary perspective. Groups that were better at cooperating, at sharing resources, and at helping each other in times of need would have had a survival advantage over groups that were more selfish and individualistic.
So altruism could actually benefit the group as a whole, even if it comes at a cost to, some individuals.
Exactly. And over time, those groups with more altruistic members would have been more likely to thrive and pass on their genes, including the genes that predispose them to altruistic behavior.
Like altruism is a kind of social investment, a way of ensuring the well-being of the group, which ultimately benefits everyone, including those who make the sacrifices.
Precisely. And this idea of group selection, as it's called, is a powerful force in shaping human morality. We're not just individuals striving for our own gain. We're social creatures, deeply concerned with the well-being of our group, even if that concern sometimes clashes with our own self-interest.
It's fascinating how our evolutionary history can kind of shed light on these, deep philosophical questions about morality and the nature of good and evil.
It really does, and it underscores the importance of taking a holistic view of human nature, recognizing that we're not just products of our genes or our environment. We're complex beings shaped by a long and intricate dance between biology, culture, and individual choice.
Okay, so we've talked about our tribal minds, a tug of war between, individual and group selection and the biological roots of altruism. But what about religion? Where does spirituality fit into this whole story of human social evolution?
Religion, it's a complex and multifaceted phenomenon, but I think one of the keys to understanding its origins lies in recognizing that humans are by nature meaning-seeking creatures. We crave explanations for the unknown, we search for purpose and significance, and we long for connection to something greater than ourselves.
So religion, at least in its early forms, might have provided a way for our ancestors to, make sense of a world that must have felt pretty chaotic and unpredictable.
Exactly. Imagine you're living in the Paleolithic era. You're surrounded by death, disease, and natural disasters, but you have no scientific understanding of these phenomena. What do?
You come up with stories, you create myths and legends to explain the unexplainable.
Precisely.
You invent, gods and spirits to appease the forces of nature.
Precisely. And those stories, those myths, they wouldn't just provide explanations, they would also provide comfort, a sense of order, and even a blueprint for how to live a good and meaningful life.
It's like religion was this early form of social glue, this way of uniting people around shared beliefs and values and, providing a sense of purpose in a world that could feel pretty scary and overwhelming.
Exactly. And let's not forget the power of ritual. Those shared ceremonies and practices, they would have further strengthened social bonds, created a sense of belonging, and reinforced the group's identity and purpose.
It's fascinating how religion, at its core, seems to tap into these, deep-seated human needs for meaning, connection, and purpose.
It really does. And while the specific beliefs and practices of religions have evolved over time, those core needs, those fundamental human longings, they remain as powerful as ever.
This is making me think about the role of art and music in early human societies. I mean, were those purely for entertainment, or did they serve a deeper social purpose as well?
It's highly likely that art and music played a much more profound role than simply providing amusement. Think about those incredible cave paintings, those intricate carvings, those haunting melodies played on bone flutes.
They're so evocative, so full of emotion and symbolism, it's hard to imagine they were just for decoration.
Exactly. They were likely expressions of spiritual beliefs, ways of connecting with the spirit world, or even attempts to influence the hunt or ensure a successful harvest.
It's like art and music provided a way for our ancestors to express their hopes, their fears, their dreams, and to connect with each other on a deeply emotional level.
Precisely. And those shared experiences, those moments of collective creativity and emotional resonance, they would have further strengthened social bonds, fostered a sense of community, and reinforced the group's shared identity.
Speaking of shared experiences, let's talk about the role of storytelling. I mean, we're not just social creatures, we're storytelling creatures, right? From ancient myths and legends to modern novels and movies, we're obsessed with narratives.
Absolutely. Storytelling is woven into the very fabric of our being. It's how we make sense of the world, how we transmit knowledge, how we connect with each other, and how we find meaning and purpose in our lives.
It's like stories provide a framework for, understanding our experiences, a way of organizing information and, making meaning out of the chaos of life.
Exactly. They help us make sense of the past, navigate the present, and imagine the future. And don't forget the emotional power of stories.
Yeah.
They can make us laugh, cry, feel outrage, and even inspire us to action.
So we're not just, passive consumers of stories. We're active participants, constantly shaping and reshaping narratives, both about ourselves and about the world around us.
Precisely. And this ability to create and share stories is arguably one of the defining characteristics of our species, a key to understanding our creativity, our social complexity, and even our capacity for both good and evil.
Okay, so we've talked about religion, art, music, and storytelling, all these powerful forces that have shaped human social evolution. But what about the evolution of the human mind itself? I mean, how did we develop the cognitive abilities that allowed us to create these complex social structures and, cultural artifacts?
That's a question that takes us to the very heart of what makes us human. And to understand the evolution of the human mind, we need to talk about a few key cognitive abilities that set us apart from our primate cousins: memory, language, and social cognition.
I'm all ears. Tell me about these, cognitive wonders that make us uniquely human.
Well, let's start with memory. We're not just talking about remembering where we left our keys, right? We're talking about the vast storehouse of knowledge, experiences, and stories that make up our personal and collective identities.
Okay, so memory is more than just a mental filing cabinet.
Think of it more like a library with different sections for different types of information: memories of events, knowledge about the world, skills we've learned, and even our hopes and dreams for the future.
So it's a dynamic process constantly being updated and reorganized as we encounter new information and have new experiences.
Exactly. Our memories aren't just fixed snapshots of the past. They're constantly evolving and being reshaped by our interactions with the world and with each other.
This is making me think about how our memories are the building blocks of our imaginations, the raw material for the stories we tell ourselves and each other.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Our memories are the foundation of our creativity, our capacity for empathy, and even our sense of self.
Okay, so memory is crucial. What about language? I mean, lots of animals communicate, but human language seems to be on a whole other level.
You're absolutely right. Human language isn't just a set of fixed signals or calls. It's a symbolic system with a complex grammar and an almost infinite capacity for generating new meanings.
So language is more than just a tool for conveying information. It's a way of creating new ideas, expressing abstract concepts, and even shaping our very perceptions of reality.
Precisely. And the symbolic power of language is what allows us to think about things that don't physically exist, to plan for the future, to discuss hypothetical scenarios, and to imagine entire worlds that exist only in our minds.
It's like language gives us this incredible ability to transcend the limitations of the physical world and create new realms of meaning and possibility.
Beautifully put. And this brings us to another fascinating aspect of the human mind, social cognition, our ability to read other people's minds.
Mind reading, is that even possible? It sounds like something out of a science fiction novel.
Well, not literally mind reading, of course, but we're incredibly good at inferring other people's thoughts, feelings, and intentions based on their behavior, their facial expressions, and their tone of voice.
So we're constantly picking up on these subtle cues, trying to figure out what's going on in other people's heads.
Exactly. And this ability to read other minds is essential for navigating the complexities of social life. It allows us to cooperate effectively, to build relationships, and to anticipate and avoid potential conflicts.
It's like we're all playing this constant game of social chess, trying to outmaneuver our opponents and predict their next move.
That's a great analogy. And just like in chess, the better you are at reading your opponent's mind, the more likely you are to succeed in the game of social life.
But if we're all so good at mind reading, why do we still have so much conflict and misunderstanding? Shouldn't we be able to just figure each other out and, get along?
That's where things get even more interesting. You see, even though we're remarkably good at social cognition, we're not perfect. We make mistakes, we misinterpret cues, and we're often influenced by our own biases and preconceptions.
So even though we have this amazing ability to read other minds, we can still be pretty clueless sometimes.
Yeah.
Exactly, and that's why communication is so important. We can't just rely on our intuition to understand each other. We need to talk to each other, to share our thoughts and feelings, and to clarify any misunderstandings.
It's like we need to combine our mind reading skills with effective communication to really navigate the social world successfully.
Precisely, and this brings us back to the importance of language. It's the tool that allows us to bridge the gap between our minds, to express our thoughts and feelings, and to build those shared understandings that are the foundation of human society.
Okay, so we've covered memory language
Yeah.
and social cognition, all these incredible cognitive abilities that have allowed us to create, such complex social structures and cultural achievements. But how did these abilities evolve in the first place? I mean, it's hard to imagine such complex systems just appearing out of nowhere.
That's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? And while there's still much we don't know about the evolution of the human mind, there are some compelling theories that shed light on how these remarkable cognitive abilities might have emerged.
I'm eager to hear them. What are some of the leading ideas about how our brains became so uniquely human?
Well, one of the most intriguing theories is the idea that language emerged from gestures,
Right.
from our primate ancestors' ability to communicate through physical movements and facial expressions.
So our hands and faces were like the original tools of communication and language, evolved as a more efficient and versatile way of conveying those same messages.
It's a fascinating possibility, isn't it? And it highlights the deep connection between our physical bodies and our cognitive abilities. We're not just disembodied minds, we're embodied creatures, and our language, our thoughts, and our emotions are all shaped by the physical realities of our existence.
It's like our bodies are the instruments through which we experience and understand the world, and language is one of the most powerful tools we have for expressing that understanding and sharing it with others.
Beautifully put, and this brings us back to the central theme of our deep dive, the intricate and often unexpected ways in which human social evolution has shaped who we are today.
It's been an incredible journey so far, exploring the origins of our tribal minds, the role of warfare, the emergence of religion and art, and the Fascinating world of human cognition. I can't wait to see what other insights await us in the final part of our exploration.
Well, buckle up, because when we return, we'll be tackling some even more profound questions about human nature, morality, and the enduring tension between our selfish instincts and our capacity for altruism and cooperation.
Yeah, it's amazing to think about how all these seemingly like separate threads, from our primate ancestors swinging through the trees to the power of storytelling and, those mind-reading skills we use every day, how they all weave together to create this tapestry of human social evolution.
It really is remarkable. And as we kind of wrap up our deep dive here, I think it's important to confront one of the most, challenging aspects of this story, the persistence of violence and war throughout human history.
Right.
It's a difficult topic, but I think if we want to understand ourselves fully, we can't, shy away from the darker side of our nature.
You're right. And earlier we touched on, the idea that warfare isn't just a product of civilization.
Yeah.
It's a pattern of behavior with deep evolutionary roots.
Yeah.
We even see it in, our primate relatives.
Exactly. And the archaeological evidence, reveals a stark reality. Violence and warfare were widespread in early human societies, long before the rise of, agriculture or complex civilizations.
So much for that romantic idea of the noble savage living in harmony with nature.
Right.
The evidence paints a much more complicated and honestly kind of unsettling picture.
It does. We see evidence of organized conflict, massacres, and even ritualistic killings in burial sites dating back tens of thousands of years.
Wow.
It's a stark reminder that violence isn't some modern invention. It's been with us from the very beginning.
It's heavy stuff for sure. But why?
Yeah.
Why are we a species capable of such love and compassion and creativity, also capable of such brutality and destruction? Is it just part of our nature?
That's the million-dollar question. And there are no, easy answers.
Right.
But I think part of the explanation lies in those dynamics of group selection that we were discussing earlier.
Yep.
Remember how, groups that cooperated effectively would have had a survival advantage?
Yeah, working together within the group would have been favored by natural selection.
Right.
But how does that explain violence between groups?
Well, the sad truth is that, intergroup conflict can also be a powerful driver of group cohesion and solidarity.
Okay.
When your tribe is facing, an external threat, it tends to unify people, strengthen those internal bonds.
So having a common enemy can actually bring people together, even if it leads to violence.
Exactly. And in the context of early human evolution, those threats were often very real.
Right.
Competition for resources, territory mates would have been groups that could, effectively defend themselves against rivals or even conquer and eliminate them would have had a significant survival advantage.
It's a sobering thought that warfare, as horrific as it is, might have actually played a role in our evolutionary success.
Mm-hmm.
But does that mean we're doomed to repeat these cycles of violence forever? I mean, are we just slaves to our genes?
Not at all. While our evolutionary history has shaped our capacity for both peace and conflict, it doesn't dictate our destiny.
Okay.
We have the power to choose to learn from our mistakes and to build a future where violence is no longer the norm.
It's like we're walking this tightrope, between our better angels and our darker impulses.
Yeah.
Constantly making choices that shape our individual destinies and the fate of our species.
Beautifully put. And this brings us to another, fundamental aspect of human nature that we need to consider: morality.
Okay.
Where does our sense of right and wrong come from? Is it something innate, something we're born with, or is it purely a product of, our culture and upbringing?
It's one of those age-old debates, isn't it? Nature versus nurture.
It is.
Genes versus environment. But I have a feeling it's not that simple.
You're absolutely right. It's not an either proposition. It's both. Okay.
Our moral sense is undoubtedly shaped by our biology, by the structure of our brains, the evolutionary history of our species.
Right.
But it's also profoundly influenced by our culture,
Right.
by the values and beliefs we're exposed to as we grow up.
So we're born with certain predisposition, certain tendencies toward empathy, cooperation, fairness, but those tendencies are then, molded and shaped by our social environment.
Exactly. And this, dynamic interplay between our genes and our culture is what makes human morality so complex and fascinating.
Right.
We're not just robots following a pre-programmed set of rules.
Right.
We're moral agents capable of making choices, of reasoning about right and wrong, and even of challenging and changing the moral norms of our society.
It's empowering to think that we have this capacity for moral reasoning and moral growth. We can learn from our mistakes. We can, strive to be better and even create new moral frameworks that reflect our values and aspirations.
Precisely. And this brings us back to the importance of understanding our evolutionary history.
Yeah. By recognizing those deep roots of our moral sense, by acknowledging the forces that have shaped our capacity for both good and evil, we can gain a more nuanced and compassionate understanding of ourselves and our place in the world.
It's like we're holding up this mirror to human nature, seeing both the beauty and the ugliness, the triumphs and the tragedies, and trying to make sense of it all. It's been an incredible journey, exploring everything from the origins of our species to the complexities of human cognition, the persistence of violence, and the enduring power of storytelling.
It has.
I'm left feeling a sense of awe and humility, recognizing the vastness of time, the improbability of our existence, and the incredible potential of the human spirit.
Beautifully said. And as we conclude our deep dive here, I want to leave our listener with one final thought to ponder.
Okay.
Imagine an advanced alien civilization observing us from afar.
Okay.
If they studied our history and our behavior, what conclusions would they draw about human nature? Would they see us as a species driven by greed and violence, or as creatures capable of love, compassion, and, incredible feats of creativity? I believe the answer lies not in some fixed or predetermined nature, but in the choices we make individually and collectively as we navigate the challenges and opportunities of the 21st century and beyond.
It's a powerful reminder that we're not just passengers on this spaceship Earth. We're the pilots responsible for steering our own course and shaping our own destiny. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into human social evolution. It's been a privilege exploring these fascinating ideas with you. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep striving to be the best versions of ourselves that we can be.